Hi, I'm Adam Summer. You're listening to the Yerushalmi Talk podcast with the support of the Yeshivat Devar Yerushalayim in Har Nof, Jerusalem. This is Demai, chapter 4, Halacha 2. This is on Art Scroll 36A1. It's going to be a short Mishnah and a short Gemara. It's really going to be a half page. The Mishnah now is going to be talking about additional cases where the Am Haaretz is going to be relied upon in tithes. And keep in mind, this is really echoing what we learned before in Halacha 1, which is going to be about one Shabbat and the testimony of one Shabbat. And that one Shabbat was going to be a wedding party. And then what happens in the second Shabbat? Are you going to be able to rely on them? Now, there was a few things that came up here. One of the themes over there in chapter 4, Halacha 1 at the wedding party was the sages are going to allow this for the sake of keeping peace, and they're also going to allow it in a case where you didn't make any other food for Shabbat. So there's two possibilities on when they're going to allow it. One possibility is, let's say you just didn't cook enough and you were relying on the wedding party and you don't have enough food at home. They're going to allow that testimony. Now, this is also a little bit different because you're not actually purchasing the produce. This leniency in chapter 4, Halacha 1 was when somebody is purchasing the produce. Now it's being where it's a wedding party. Somebody else is making it. So in the first week, in the first Shabbat at this first wedding party, they're going to allow you this leniency for the sake of keeping peace. And the Mishnah coming up is going to basically be saying, but what happens if there's something on the second Shabbat and they're going to invite you over on the first Shabbat? First Shabbat's going to be a wedding party. And then the guy makes a vow and he's going to say, well, if this guy doesn't accept my invitation, I'm going to be so insulted and it's going to really affect, the Ahavat Yisrael, and it's really not good, and how can these, religious people not eat from my food, and I'm going to make a vow. And then in that kind of case, are you going to be able to rely also on this case of, I'm trying to keep the peace? The Mishnah says that if one pronounces a vow on his fellow in order that he should eat by him, and the invitee, that's the person who gets invited, does not trust the host regarding tithes. Why? Because one is a haver and one is an Am Haaretz. It says he may eat with him on the first Shabbat. And as we saw there, that's going to be on and only on a wedding invitation. That's going to be like a Sheva Bracha or something like that. And by the way, there is a theme that comes up throughout both Shases that a haver and a Torah scholar is not supposed to do feasting without a mitzvah. So if you want to have a nice feast for Shabbat, great. If you want to have a nice feast for Rosh Chodesh, that's great. You're honoring Rosh Chodesh. If you want to have a nice Suda because there's a bris, or you're celebrating an engagement, or you're celebrating the finishing and a siyum, that's also great. But you're not supposed to just do what secular or goyim do, which is just to have feasts just stam, okay? And that's also part of the theme that's going to be coming up here. So in the case of this wedding feast, that's going to be a mitzvah feast. But what's going to happen in this second feast that's coming up? It's really kind of like just a feast. Yeah, okay, it's on Shabbat, and I understand that. But the wedding feast has a little bit more to it because it really is a mitzvah. So if one pronounces a vow on his fellow in order that he should eat by him, and this again is going to be where person A invites person B to the meal, and he declares a neder that if person B does not accept the invitation, that he's going to be forbidden to derive any benefit from person A's possessions, and that's going to be a question of, are we going to, first of all, it's a form of like motivational nedarim, and it's really showing a strong desire that person B come and eat with him. And that this person A is going to have really hard feelings toward person B if he does not. Now, the Rambam commentary about this is where it's saying that this is actually a neder. That's imprecise, says the Rambam. And the Rambam commentary says that the Mishnah actually means that the host made an oath. And according to the Rambam, this is a motivational shavuot. It's not actually a neder. So that's a good point. So the idea here, the theme that you need to take away is, what about preserving the peace? Because really, person A is inviting person B, who is a haver, and person A is going to be really insulted. And is that going to be cause for keeping the peace? And it went as far as making a shavua, which is also very serious in itself. So the Mishnah says, and the invitee does not trust the host regarding ties, he may eat with him on the first Shabbat. That, again, is the case of the wedding party. Then, says the Mishnah, even though the host cannot be trusted regarding ties, provided that the host says to him the food is tithed. Now, this is going to be that leniency that we talked about. Unlike the case in the last Mishnah where the Haver asks the Am Haaretz whether he tithed the produce, in this case, and part of the nuance of this Mishnah, is that the Am Haaretz on his own is now giving testimony that the food is tithed. And the Mara Fulda explains that in this case, which is new, we didn't hear this before, since the Am Haaretz is anxious to have the Haver participate in the feast, there's a concern that if he's directly asked by the Haver, he will answer that the food is tithed even if it's not tithed. And therefore the testimony of the Am Haaretz must be given on its own, or an answer to someone else's inquiry. In other words, somebody else goes and asks, oh, did you tithe it? And you hear the answer from this other person. That's going to be another possibility. So the Mishnah now is going to get to the punchline of this. And then it says, but on the second Shabbat, even if the host pronounces a vow that the invitee not benefit from him unless he accepts his invitation, he may not eat unless he separates the tithes. In other words, that this haver would have to separate the tithes of the food that would be at this party before. He can't just assume that it's been tithed. He can't just go there and eat. He can't just rely on the testimony of the Am Haaretz. He actually has to physically separate out these tithes before the Shabbat. Now, the commentators are going to be wondering why this Mishnah repeats the fact that the host pronounces a vow. And really, what this is trying to suggest is the seriousness, even in the second Shabbat, about the person being insulted. And that's really the point of this. That's really where we're going. Is if to save peace in Am Yisrael, are you going to be able to go eat at a place like this? Now, this also has implications because what if an Am Haaretz comes and invites you and says, "Oh, the food is kosher"? Well, just for the sake of creating peace, you're not allowed to go eat by him. So that's also going to be over here as well. You're not going to be able to eat with him unless he separates the tithes. And in the modern world, you would not be able to eat unless you had control over the food beforehand. In either way, you're going to have control over the food before this event to safeguard it. So in this case, protecting the peace is not enough. Now, one of the ideas here is that even if this vow is issued by the Am Haaretz, and he's basically showing a strong indication that he'd be very insulted if he doesn't come, this concluding clause, which is saying with that he's not allowed to join the Am Haaretz for the second Shabbat, and that's really going to be a novelty in this case. And even if this vow is really prohibiting him from all kinds of benefits, and it's really showing this guy's going to be very, very upset with person B, who's the chaver who wouldn't come. This is really showing the extent of which the Haver really cannot go. So that's, again, going to be recognizable today with, somebody who's very careful with kosher. You also would have to you rely on their word, and you'd also have to have control over the product before. The Gemara is going to explain the Mishnah's ruling that he may eat with him on the first Shabbat. And again, this is going to be about the wedding party. Rabbi Yanai, the son of Rabbi Ishmael, says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, it is on the Shabbat of the wedding feast that the rabbis permitted one to rely on the testimony of the Am Haaretz because of the animosity that would be generated if the Haver were not to join the celebration. Rabbi Yochanan explains it like this. He's saying that the first Shabbat refers to the first Shabbat after the wedding. That's going to be Shabbat Sheva Brachas. And that's a big deal. Now, the rabbis are going to allow the Haver to join the celebration because if he doesn't do it, then there's going to be a lot of animosity between him and the Am Haaretz. However, on other Shabbats, where even if there was going to be another celebration, the presence of the Haver is not as important, and there's no longer a concern for animosity. So, in this case, where the rabbis are not going to allow the Haver to rely on the Am Haaretz's testimony. And my son, Aaron Yudah Leib, has a lot to say about this today. He's really over my shoulder watching the Gemara. And he's 6 months old. And Bezrat Hashem, in Shemayim, I get credit for teaching him Torah. So some of the commentators are going to understand that the Mishnah is going to allow someone to rely on the word of the Am Haaretz, perhaps even for weekday feasts within the first week of the wedding. And the idea would be that, in this case, it would be a mitzvah meal. And again, this is going to be, they would use the Mishnah's lenient ruling. So this is dealing with definite Demai. And, today, you can't, as the Chazan Ish says, you can't rely on people today for tithes at all. And, you have to assume that everybody's not even taking out Truma Gedola. So you wouldn't be able to do this in this time because the Am Haaretz, frankly, is less learned than the Am Haaretz here. So, and also has less closeness to Hashem, unfortunately. So the Gemara is going to remark that Rabbi Avin says here in our Mishnah that the rabbis permitted eating rabbinic tevel, that's going to be Demai, because this is one of the ways of fostering harmony. And simply understood, Rabbi Avin is not disputing Rabbi Yochanan at all, but he's merely highlighting the novelty of the Mishnah in light of Rabbi Yochanan's explanation, that the majority of the commentators to the Mishnah are going to be citing Rabbi Yochanan's statement that the law of the Mishnah applies only when it's the case of a wedding feast. And that is going to be the accepted understanding of the Mishnah. So the Gemara is going to object, and Rabbi Hanina says Rabbi Yirmiyah asked if the Mishnah permits eating rabbinic tevel only on account of fostering harmony, and the testimony of the Am Haaretz is basically worthless, why then does the Mishnah qualify the permit with the condition provided that the host says to him, the food is tithed? So why is that? And Rabbi Kanievsky is going to give the following explanation. He's going to say the same question can also be asked with regards to the previous statement of Rabbi Yochanan, who attributes the leniency of the Mishnah to the concern for the animosity and not to the trust we have for the Am Haaretz's testimony. So the question on Rabbi Avin, however, may be more compelling. For Rabbi Avin is stating that the rabbis permitted eating rabbinic tevel, and this strongly indicates that the testimony of the Am Haaretz is not believed at all, and the produce is viewed as full-fledged Demai. Now, the Gemara is not going to give an answer, but the Marafulda is going to say that the Gemara is answering that while the Am Haaretz's testimony carries no legal believability, it is required in order to provide a pretext for permitting the consumption of Demai. And this is, by the way, very similar to the pretext that Rabbi Yochanan describes in chapter 4, Halacha 1 of Demai, where we're giving the leniency of this for Shabbat. Why are you getting the leniency of this? Because over there, honoring Shabbat is Doraita, and the rabbinic decree on Demai is D'Rabbanan. And something that's Ta'aseh, that you will oneg Shabbat, that's Doraita, will override something that is a rabbinic thing of a lo Ta'aseh, which is that you shall not eat untithed food. So over here, you're also fostering harmony, fostering peace. That's going to be a Doraita obligation. That's going to also be a positive commandment. And the other, that's Doraita. And over here, the not eating the untithed rabbinic food is a lo ta'aseh that is going to be D'Rabbanan. And that's why you're going to get this in the case of a wedding party. But on a regular Shabbat, you wouldn't be allowed this leniency. The mechanism's a little bit different. Over there, it's because of oneg Shabbat, and you have possession of the food. Over here, you never took possession of the food, and the reason the mechanism is because of fostering harmony. Now, the Mishnah taught that the Haver may participate in the wedding feast of the first Shabbat, but not the second Shabbat. And the Gemara is going to ask questions, say, if the invitee asked the Am Haaretz about the status of the produce on the first Shabbat of the wedding, but he did not come and join the celebration, can the Shabbat, the second one, be now considered like the first Shabbat? In other words, he's saying, really, this is not an unanswered question, but really what this is saying is, can you trust the testimony of the food from the first Shabbat over to the second Shabbat? Perhaps one of the reasons that the Gemara does not give a reply is because it seems obvious, right? What is the obvious answer? A lot of times when something's obvious, it's not answered in the Yerushalmi, and the obvious reply would be that, look, the testimony of the Am Haaretz and it expires after the first Shabbat, disappears, and it's gone forever. So this question would basically be assuming that the testimony on the first Shabbat would somehow carry over after the first Shabbat, and it doesn't. And we covered that in the last Mishnah. So it doesn't get answered, I think, because it's really kind of obvious that there's the answer is kind of obvious. It's in the last Mishnah, and that we don't rely on the Am Haaretz's testimony, and it's only given as a pretext in this one condition. And if you assume that you could do it in the second, you would be giving weight to the Am Haaretz's testimony. Now, we're going to get toward the end of this set of sugyas. It's very short halacha. As explained before, the Mishnah's lenient ruling is only with wedding feasts. Now, the Mishnah did not have to find it necessary to state so expressly. So the Gemara is going to infer. It's going to say, Rav Chizda said, here in our Mishnah we learn that it is forbidden for a haver to eat at a feast of no significance. In other words, you're not allowed as a haver to go eat big festive meals that aren't connected with a mitzvah. And therefore, it's self-evident that the Mishnah's ruling is dealing with a wedding feast, Shabbos, Sheva Brachas. Now, the Chazan Ish is going to point out that although any one of the three Shabbos meals when eaten by a Jew is considered a Sudas mitzvah, the Haver may not join a regular Shabbos meal hosted by the Am Haaretz because he can just as easily fulfill the mitzvah to feast on Shabbat in his own house. And only if the Shabbos meal is held by the Am Haaretz that has the additional quality that it is in a celebration of the marriage can the Haver participate. That's going to be the insight to explain this by the Chazan Ish. And that finishes up chapter 4, Halacha 2. Have a great Shabbos.